Marriage is a thing of nature. Men and women come together and form the bond by which to raise the next generation.
Opponents of same-sex marriage are increasingly using the argument marriage should be between a man and a woman because only heterosexual unions result in procreation. But that could be a problematic argument when the Supreme Court hears two major same-sex marriage cases next week. Supreme Court reporter Bob Barnes is here to explain. Good to see you, Bob.
Nice to see you.
So if marriage between a man and a woman is supposed to result in kids, that hasn't been the case for many of the actual justices who will be hearing these cases.
That's right, not always. Justice Elena Kagan, for instance, she never got married and has no children. Justice Sonia Sotomayor is divorced, but she decided in her first marriage that she would not have children. She was diagnosed with diabetes as a child, and she says, frankly, that she didn't know that she would live a long enough life to take care of a child. Chief Justice John Roberts, he and his wife were both 41 when they got married, for the first time, and they wanted to have children, and eventually they adopted, 4 years later, a son and a daughter. Also, Justice Clarence Thomas, he was married at a young age and had a son, but when he married his wife, now Virginia Lamp Thomas, they decided not to have children.
So, of course, the question becomes how much should or will this personal experience actually affect how the justices see the case? This isn't a simple question of what the Constitution or the law says, though. It's a more nuanced question of what makes a marriage, so maybe the personal experience matter in that?
Well, there's a little bit of that. You know, there's also an argument that by some that this question about same-sex marriage is something like the ban that states used to have on interracial marriage, which of course Justice Thomas is in an interracial marriage. Others say no, it's not the same thing at all. Marriage is a traditional union between a man and a woman, and the color of their skin doesn't matter. But it is a question for justices, and what do they bring of their experience, their real life world that they come from, what do they bring to those decisions? They always say, you know, we put that aside, but still you can see it in their writing sometimes. Justice Thomas can write about race the way none of his other colleagues can. Justice Ginsburg, as you know, was a big advocate for women's rights before she was on the court. And so she often talks about sort of how sex discrimination works in the real world when she writes opinions.
Do we have a sense of how much this procreation argument will be central in the arguing of the cases?
Well, what the court is looking for is, does the government have a reason to discriminate? Does the government have a reason to say that only heterosexual couples can get married and not same-sex couples? And so that is the reason that government gives. Why is government interested in marriage? Because government is interested in children being raised by two parents, or in having a stable home life. And so a lot of studies show that marriage is key to that, to raising children.
Okay, March 26th and 27th are the arguments?
That's right, 2 days. The first day will be on California's Proposition 8, which was a constitutional amendment that bans same-sex marriages. And the next day we'll be looking at the Defense of Marriage Act, which is a federal law that says that the federal government will not recognize same-sex marriages that are performed in those states where it's legal.
Okay, sure. We'll be speaking to you next week when these arguments are made.
Great.
Thanks, Bob.